Emily.
This is Stephanie.
And today we're doing another book review of The Windfall by Diksha Basu.
Yes, so Emily had received this as a book of the month a few months prior, and it basically follows along the story of a Indian family called the Jaws, Mr. and Mrs. Jaws and their son Rupak, and they've come along with some money recently from selling a website that Mr. Jaw had set up years ago, and basically made them wealthy overnight. I think they're now millionaires. But yeah, you really see how they struggle from going from middle class to an upper class citizen, their neighborhood as well, because they had moved from a more middle class neighborhood to a more upper class wealthy area in Delhi as well. So you really see the struggles that they really went through, not just for their family but for their neighbors as well.
So this book in general, I picked it because, again, with the unique narrative of the fact that it was set in India, that's not something you find very common in English literature, with the exception of like the colonial times. I actually took a South Asian studies class in college, and I used to have to read a lot of stuff that happened during like the partition and British colonialism in India, and there's a lot of English published books about that, but not so much about like the modern era, like where things have really changed. India has been independent for quite a while, you know, and this is just overall like the sort of gap between like literary timeline. There's this huge gap in between where there's there's really no English related discussion about like what happens to Indians now. So this was actually a very interesting like lens into like what exactly do Indians really care about today, you know, what exactly happens to them as they try to like achieve their dreams, right? It's not necessarily the American dream, it's the Indian dream.
And the society difference as well.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the Jaw were mostly pretty comical, like obviously because of the fact that there's such a class conflict between them and their neighbors, and you kind of actually really empathize with them, because even though like we haven't been or maybe we will, but like we're not like, we haven't really gone through that class transition as much yet, but we can still understand that like there's such a difference sometimes between like what super rich people care about and what we care about, you know.
Right, and like what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And like not only just that, but like for us as well, like we might know what's acceptable in American culture, but not necessarily so in Indian culture. So for me, like I'm assuming for you as well, it was just kind of an interesting insight on how they interact with each other, and like she said, like what they really care about, and like their class, the societies, what they care about as well. So honestly, like the entire story, you just see like Mr. Jaw like kind of going from here to like slowly winding down.
Be like, being rich sucks.
Yeah, like you see like, and then when like that ultimate climax happened, I was like, oh, that was to be expected. But yeah, there was definitely a comical side to things, especially with like the whole Jaw family, like, you know, between the wife and the husband and their son as well. And there's also a lot of like identity, like, you know, self-identifying themselves, who they are again, especially the class transition. There was previously, I felt like they were very much, you know, especially with Mrs. Jaw, she was kind of like, this is our neighborhood, these are our friends, these are our neighbors, this is who we like, what we don't like. And then all of a sudden they got moved to this other area, and she's just like, I have no friends now, I don't really know what to do, like. And then she tried to find a job, and then her neighbor was just like, oh, you don't need to work, you know, like no one really works. And then she was just like, oh, but like I like working, you know.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot of like self-identifying in this book as well. So I don't know, I mean, I actually enjoyed it. Like in the beginning I thought it was a little bit slow, but like as the comic side started to like really be present, I was just like chuckling to myself as I read the book.
That's good. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it, because yeah, I would definitely say that this is one of those pretty easy, like I got it in the summer, so like summer reads. Like it's not like hard to like imagine you were like reading on the beach, but even like now, if you just casually don't want to think too much and pick up a book, this would probably be a pretty good one. And you still will learn a lot, because again, it's not like a particular arena of like American literature that like is very common. Like you don't really talk much about like a modern day like Indian family.
This book kind of allowed me to understand where all these like Indian like international students were coming from.
Yeah.
Because now I understand why they had all these expectations, because as middle class citizens in India, you have maids coming in, you have like you have the guards, you have the servants around the house. Like it's perfectly normal. Like they had a maid.
Middle class?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like the Jaws, they had maids. Like it was very normal for them to have a cook in the house. You know, have someone clean up the house. Like it's. I feel like as middle class people here, like you don't have that. Like
no,
you don't.
We're
have,
very DIY.
Yeah, like so, like I understand now why like sometimes like growing like when I was at school with some of them, they like didn't really know how to take care of themselves, like clean up themselves after, because they grew up in a household that had someone else do it for them.
Yeah.
You know, so I was just like, and at that time I was just like, I don't understand. Like I feel like this is kind of like common sense. Like when you do something, you clean it up. Like. You know, but then like the cultural difference, I was just like, oh, that explains a lot, because they didn't have to do that growing up, you know, and like and I'm assuming all the people, the Indian students who came to the U.S., they're at least middle class. I mean, I think if you're lower than that, I don't think they can afford the tuition in America. So I'm like, okay, that explains a lot. I get it.
You get it. Years later.
Yeah, like I was like, okay, because like I think it's the same way in China too. You know, like in China, like not just in China, but like in Asia, it's also very common to have maids. You know, have like a maid around the house just to clean up, take care of your kids, etc. So I can kind of see the similarity between the two cultures, but
yeah, I'd definitely say that like the idea of what middle class is changes a lot with this book, because like as you said, like one very glaring difference is that American middle class, we do not define it with like ever a real sense of maids. Maybe like a babysitter. Like like I can afford like a steady babysitter sometimes.
Yeah, but that's like you know a 2-hour, 3-hour thing. You know where they just take care of your kids while you go out for a date night or something.
That's true, and like summer camps, those things actually all add up pretty expensive. But like it's just not that like idea of like you have an au pair or like a maid like that. Gets a little like in our minds
that's something more like wealthier status.
Yeah, definitely like elite, like or upper middle class to like actual like rich people.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, I don't know, I felt like this was a cultural eye-opener for me as well. So
yeah, I overall though, like just really fun read. I don't have much more to say about it. What do you think?
The one thing I want to say is also Rupak, because like his, like I feel like his, this is probably a spoiler, but like his self-identity as like who he really is and what he wants to do. I feel like that was kind of a struggle that like a lot of kids have, especially like international, like not even international kids, like as any kids growing up, like they don't really know what they want to do as opposed to what their parents expect them to do.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like his parents expected him to go into business. You know, they were like, you're going to do an MBA, you'll be successful just like your father. But what he really wanted to do wasn't business, and he didn't really have like the ability, or not the ability, but like the capability or like the backbone to really tell them like, oh, actually I want to do this. You know, because in a way, like especially in Asian culture, your parents are usually the one footing your tuition, and therefore you feel kind of like this need to kind of do what your parents want you to do just because they are the one paying for your studies. But as opposed to like the American society, where a lot of the students actually they're paying for their own. They're always like taking like side jobs, like, you know, part-time, so they're able to pay for their own tuition, and therefore they have a lot. I feel like they have a little bit more leeway in terms of what they want to do. So I understood Rupak. I also wanted to say, like, not just that, but I also want to talk about his identity with his like girlfriend situation too.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that's why I brought up the whole like college situation, because like not only did he not know what to study, but he also didn't really know like who to date and who to like whether or not his parents would approve this girl, like, you know, like whether or not he loved her. And then like when he realized that, it was too late and like all that stuff, and I was just like, so much drama that's unnecessary. But
I would say it's unnecessary. I think it just comes with the territory of being in a new place.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say that like, and you don't necessarily fit in.
Right. Yeah, and then like at that time, especially with him coming to new wealth all of a sudden, he was just like,
huh?
Like he was a little confused because he wasn't really with them at that time. Like he was now in school in America, and then a lot of the times when they came to visit him in New York, he was just like, why can't you guys just be like normal wealthy people and just go, you know, live at the Ritz or like the W Hotel or something? And then they stay at like some random little like, I don't even know, like Garden Inn or something. You know,
Like Holiday Inn.
Yeah, something like that. Where I was, he was just like, why can't you just be normal? Like, you either can be like wealthy or you can be not. You know, like there are certain things that you do when you're wealthy, and there's certain things you don't do. And for him, I guess it was more like obvious. But then he was just like, why can't my parents get it? Like.
Yeah, I guess, now that you mention it, I think as a character, he definitely struggled less with the idea of, like, what wealth could do for you.
Yeah, but he struggled more with identity.
Yeah. And, like,
And
what
expectations.
exactly is his identity outside of, like, material means?
Yeah.
So.
But, yeah, I mean, I think that's really all I have to say about this book.
Yeah, but that's pretty comical. It's like the parents were dealing with identity, like, not identity issues, but, like,
wealth.
how to fit wealth within their identity as, like, I guess, like, as who they are. And then, the son has the opposite problem.
And then, like, also, I really like the whole side story with the neighbor, Mrs. Ray.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I really liked her as a character. Like, I was like, sometimes I feel like I needed her, because she was just, like, this breath of, like, fresh air.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, Mr. Ja and his, like, absurdity at the time. And I was just like, okay, let's just read about her and her romance.
Alright, well, yeah, but definitely recommend this book for anyone who wants, you know, a new snapshot of, like, a different culture and all the problems that come with it. But
And, like, what it means to be wealthy.
and just in general, like, if you just want a different type of read.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah. Well, so thank you guys. Let us know what you think about the book itself within the comments down below. Subscribe if for any other related book content that we post every week.
And don't forget that we do have Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so do follow us, like us, and we also have podcasts as well on Google Play and iTunes, so be sure to check that out as well.
Alright, thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye.